Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's guest is a Hollywood producer. He's a Disney animator. He's a global keynote speaker, a podcast host as well of the popular show Life of Awesome. And his mission is to empower others to live their dream life. And on today's show, we're going to try and answer the question, how can we strengthen our confidence, our vulnerability, and our vision by harnessing the power of storytelling? Saul Blinkoff, thank you for being on the show, my man.
Hey, Brett. So good to be here. Thank you and for inviting me. And I also want to just thank your audience for tuning in. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you.
All right. All right. Listen, we appreciate you, my friends. And, I want to kind of talk about you for a little bit. You grew up in Long Island, New York, couldn't be farther from Hollywood. And, eventually you chased your dreams of lights, camera, action. You made it a reality. And now you inspire others to chase their dreams and make them a reality. So just tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I grew up in Long Island, New York. I was 6 years old, and I love to do what I think all 6 year olds love to do. I love to draw. By the way, can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Yeah, don't worry. Sometimes the visuals will get a little choppy, but it
Oh,
doesn't affect the audio.
perfect. So let me go back. So yeah, I grew up in New York, and I was 6 years old. I remember I loved to draw, which I think all kids love to do. I was really set to be an artist. That was it. I mean, a lot of times people come to me and they'll be like, Saul, let me ask you a question. I know that you found your passion and your dream, but how do I find mine? And I have 4 kids, and I can tell you every single one of my kids, when they were when they were like 8 or 9 years old, and we'd be in a swimming pool, and I'd say, "Okay, guys, time to get out of the pool." Not one of them ever jumped out of the pool. It was always like, "All right, countdown. You got 5 minute warning, 2 minute warning," and even after the 1 minute warning, they'd still be in there. And I'm like, "Oh, there's going to be a consequence if you don't come out of that pool." And I always tell people, find the thing that you want to do that you never want to stop. Find that thing that you love to do that you just never want to stop. The kind of thing you're doing where you just forget to look at the clock because you're so involved, invested, passionate, feeling pleasure for what you're doing. And for me, as a young kid, it was drawing. That's all I really wanted to do until I was 11 years old, and I went to a movie that changed my life. I'm sitting in the theater and I'm watching the movie E.T., right? Remember that one? Spielberg's
Hmm.
finest. It was incredible. I remember the credits were rolling. I tapped my mom at the end of the movie and I'm like, Mom, that's what I want to do someday. And my mom's like, what, you want to leave planet Earth in a spaceship? I'm like, no, Mom. I want to make movies. And, like I said, guys, I grew up in New York. I didn't know any creative people. I didn't know any Hollywood people. People I knew had jobs that were business owners, doctors, lawyers, bakery owners. I didn't know you could do a creative job. And even at that point, I didn't know. All I knew is when I looked up to the screen, it just called to me. It really spoke to me. So I went to a building that my kids will never be at. It's called a library. Yeah, that's where we used to get information in the olden days before the internet, as my kids call it. And I went to a library and I got books on cameras, lenses, storyboarding. I found out the director of E.T., Steven Spielberg, used to make movies on the weekends. So I got a film camera, my twin sister, my older brother, and I started making movies, monster movies, kidnap movies. We'd make fake blood, little explosions. It was so much fun. It's all I wanted to do. And I'll never forget, I'm in high school, maybe a sophomore in high school. Somebody comes up to me one day and they're like, Saul, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? I said, well, I'm going to be a filmmaker. They're like, no, no, you don't want to do that. I said, well, yeah, I do. They said, no, you don't, because if you want to be a filmmaker, you're going to have to move out to Hollywood. And Hollywood is filled with strange weirdos. They looked at me and said, you don't want to end up a weirdo, do you? And I said, no, I don't want to end up a weirdo. And I'm telling you guys right then and there, I gave up on my dream because one person told me I would end up a weirdo. Of course, today I do live in Hollywood, and my 4 kids would definitely tell you their dad is a weirdo. So much for that. But at that point in my life, I actually gave up on that dream. And even when I share that story right now, it makes me think how many times in our lives somebody could say something to us and make us feel empowered, make us believe in ourselves. Someone could say something else to us and change the trajectory that we're on, make us doubt ourselves, make us feel that what we want isn't even possible. And sometimes we end up listening to those voices more than we should. Well, I gave up on that dream of being a filmmaker, and my parents are like, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'll go back to being an artist. So I'm very lucky. You know, Brett, I have very, very supportive parents. And my parents hired an art teacher to come to our home, a private teacher to teach me how to draw. She was amazing. And she'd have me to draw from life. She would send me to cafes. I'll never forget. I'd go to cafes, restaurants. She wanted me to draw people. So I would get all my drawings together and I would show them to her. And I remember her looking at them and going, I like the drawings, but I noticed none of the people that you drew have hands. Did they not have hands at the restaurant? I'm like, no, they did. She goes, well, why didn't you draw them? I said, well, because drawing hands is difficult. She goes, oh, that's hard? Okay, good. Here's your homework. Every night before you go to bed, you're going to draw your hand from a different position. And that is exactly what I did. And she taught me one of the most valuable lessons in all of life. Have the singular mindset to turn our weakness into our strength. You see, we like to feel good about ourselves. We like to see that we've accomplished something, that we feel good. Look, I did that well. We don't like to be reminded of the things we don't do well. But those things that we don't do well, that's where we have to put all of our energy. That becomes the answer key to growing. I mean, look, you know, I grew up in the 90s, right? So I know who the greatest basketball player to ever play is. Brett, who is it?
It's Michael Jordan.
There you go. I was giving a talk the other day to some high school kids. 90% of them are going LeBron. I'm like, LeBron who? Michael Jordan is in the NBA the first year. And one of the sports writers from Sports Illustrated comes up to him after a game and says, Michael, you are a scoring machine, but your defense, it's not so strong. Do you know what Michael's ego could have said to the guy? Dude, could you get out of my face? I just made $1 million playing basketball. Do you know who I am? Your kid probably has my posters up over his wall. Could you get out of my face? But that's not what Jordan did. Jordan said in his mind, he heard one thing. Something I'm doing is giving that guy the perception that I don't have a defensive game. I guess I better work harder on defense. And he did. And 2 years later, only one player was named Defensive Player of the Year. Number 23, Michael Jordan. You know what made him so unbelievable? Not the things that he could do. It's that he had a mindset that I will turn my weakness into my strength. And if anyone in our lives could ever point out one of our weaknesses, you know what we should do? We should hug them. We should hug them because understanding that weakness is the answer key to growing. What an incredible teacher I had. So I was going to be an artist. And then, well, I went to another movie that changed my life. Let's see how well you know your Disney stuff, Brett. I'll sing the song, and you tell me what the movie is, okay?
Let's go. I'm pumped. I don't know
if
I
right.
get it, but I'm going to try.
All right, let's see. All right, here we go. The seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake. You dream about going up there, but up there's a big mistake. No?
I think that's a Little Mermaid.
There you go. Boom.
Little Mermaid. I mean,
Under the sea. Yeah. Come on, sing with me, Brett. Under the sea. There you go. That was almost harmony that we had right there. People,
we're doing our best.
We're doing our best.
Virtually. We're recording.
That's right.
But that was the first on Persistence Playbook. Definitely the first Disney.
There you go.
But you got to know Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid. That's one of the all-time.
You got it. Classic, right? And I don't mean the new one. I mean the old, the original, right? So I'm watching that movie and I'm mesmerized. The credits are rolling. I tap my mom at the end of the movie and I go, Mom, that's what I want to do. And she's like, what, you want to fall in love with a fish? I'm like, no, I want to work in animation because animation combined my two passions, my love of drawing, my love of filmmaking, put them together, animation. And plus I find that Disney has a studio in Orlando, Florida. Boom. I don't have to go out to LA. So there I was, junior in high school, and I knew exactly what my dream was. My dream was to become a Disney animator. I just had one major problem. I had no idea how to do it. You know, today you want to become anything. right? You go to Google and you type in,
Go to YouTube. You're good.
go to YouTube, you'll figure it out. Back then, like I said, in the olden days, no internet, no way to figure it out. So my mom took me, not my older brother, not my twin sister, took me to Disney World just to walk me around Disney World to ask the Disney cast members, that's what they call their employees, how her son could become a Disney animator. It was actually very embarrassing. We were getting on the It's a Small World boat ride, right? We're stepping on the boat and the Disney lady's like, how many in your party? I'm like, 2. My mom's like, by the way, my son wants to be a Disney animator. Can you help him? Very embarrassing.
That's amazing. I love it. Hey, whatever. Messy action, right? Get out there,
right?
Messy action, and it'll work for you eventually.
That's right. And the lady's like, look, ma'am, this is a boat ride. Like, we don't hire artists here. I don't know what you're thinking. So look, we go through the boat ride, right? It's a small world. Well, no, that song will be in your head the rest of the day. Sorry, everybody.
Sure, 100%.
Okay, so we go through the boat, we come back, and the lady says, look, if you want your son to work at Disney, he's got to go to the Disney casting building. That's where they hire all their cast members. And it was 3 minutes away from where we were in Disney World. So my mom drives me there. Can you guys imagine how beautiful a Disney office building must look? Wow. It was magical, whimsical. I remember the doorknobs looked like the ones from Alice in Wonderland, the ones that speak, and they were made out of brass. I open up the doors. It's amazing. I walk into this atrium, these gold statues of Mickey, Donald, Pluto, Goofy. It was amazing. Even the air in there had like a smell, like a magic, like pixie dust in the air. You know, it was amazing. And I remember walking up a ramp, and painted on the ceiling of this ramp is Peter Pan and Wendy flying off to Neverland. And I even just telling you the story now, I get goosebumps. I remember the emotions of like, that's what I want. I want my life to be in Neverland. I want to live my dream. You know, a lot of times when people say, you know, what do you want to do for a living? And then they'll separate, well, what's your dream? People think dreams aren't reality because they usually happen when we're sleeping. To me, the greatest tragedy is when I meet a teenager or a 20-year-old, they've already given up on a dream. They already think, you know, that's not possible. And there's something I always remind myself and I remind my kids. Just because something is not probable doesn't mean it's not possible.
Amen, brother.
Just because everyone's not doing it doesn't mean you can't do it. You think about inside what lights us up. Where's our passion? Where's our pleasure? Why can't we live our dreams? And by the way, we're surrounded with people all the time that are living their dreams. Every time you see someone in life that looks like they're living their dream, that is a reminder to us what is stopping us. The only thing stopping us from accomplishing a dream is ourselves. Boom. That's it. So when I walked up that ramp and I looked up to that painting of Peter Pan and Wendy flying off to Neverland, I was delusional. I was an optimist. I'm like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to live that life. And I sit there for the interview. The lady comes out, can I help you? I'm like, yeah, my name is Saul. My dream is to be a Disney animator. She looks at me and says, well, unfortunately, we don't hire those here. I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, we hire people that work the rides in the parks. Like people that make the Dumbo ride go up and down or that hit the button for go for Space Mountain. Right. Do you want to work in the park? I'm like, that's not really my dream. She sees I'm discouraged, walks out, comes back in 2 minutes later and hands me a piece of paper. I will tell you that piece of paper became the most valuable piece of paper I have ever held in my hands. It was a list of 8 schools, 8 art colleges that Disney recruits their artists from. And she looked at me and said, quote, if you want to be a Disney animator, you need to go to one of these schools. Boom. That was it. Cool. That was the equation I was looking for. Saul plus go to one of these schools will equal dream. You know, some of you who are listening right now, maybe you are one of the lucky ones. Maybe you're one of the lucky ones that has the clarity of something that you want to accomplish. Just to have that clarity. And whatever it is in life, maybe it's a career dream. Maybe it's, you know what, I have the clarity that I want to be a more patient parent. Or maybe it's the clarity that I want to meet my soulmate, or I want to become a more humble person, or whatever the clarity is of something that seemingly feels almost impossible to get. The clarity is the first step. The goal is the first step. The second part, We got to know how to accomplish it. You go to a great restaurant, you taste an unbelievable dessert that you love, creme brulee, tiramisu, you want to make it? You can make it if you have the recipe. What's the recipe? So for me, it was Saul plus go to one of these schools will equal dream. Once you have that equation, nothing's stopping us. So there I was, junior in high school. I knew what my dream was. I want to be a Disney animator. And I had a list of the greatest art schools in the world that Disney recruited their artists from. That's how really it all began for me.
So cool, man. So cool. And I love that equation. And I think that's a really powerful statement is first, you've got to find clarity. And without clarity of what you want to accomplish, then you really can't do much else. But once you've got that clarity, there's a formula out there. There's someone else who's probably done what you want to do already. And you just got to find that recipe. And then you just got to take the action, right? It's really
beautiful.
I mean, that is really just a very simplified, really succinct way to say, how to accomplish in life, what you want to accomplish. And I love how you talked about finding that one thing that you can just do all day and lose yourself in a state of flow. And it reminds me of, and I want to kind of keep touching back on movies and stories, because I know that that's a big part of your teaching is you kind of leverage, movies and fictional characters, and you use the lessons that they teach us to actually, make real life decisions and actions. And a really awesome quote I love from City Slickers is, do you know what the secret of life is? And he just holds up that one finger.
Yeah.
Just one thing. Right. And he goes,
right.
How do I know what that one thing is? And he goes, well, that's for you to figure out. And I just think
right.
that is,
right. No one's going to figure it out for you.
Right.
You know what? Since you brought up movies, one of the first movies that I ever worked on at Disney was Pocahontas. This is an old school movie. You remember that one?
Of course, yeah.
And there's a scene in that movie during the song "Just Around the Riverbend" where Pocahontas is in this canoe, and the canoe is just going. And I always tell people it's such a great example for life. It's like sometimes we're in a canoe. We're in a boat and the current just takes us, whether it's starting our first job, whatever it is, or even, by the way, picking a job. It's like, I picked the jobs of people that I knew in my life had. Or even if you get into a job, like, okay, I got this intro job, or I started as a PA and then I got promoted to this or promoted to that. And around me, the current starts to take me. And I tell people all the time, there's that great scene in Pocahontas where she stops the canoe and there's two paths to go. She's got the paddle in her hand and she doesn't have the clarity yet. She's like, you know what? Which way do I want to go? Then, boom, she figures it out. I want that way. And then she paddles in that direction. And that's something all of us need to do. We can't just let the current of life take us. We have to pick up the paddle, get the clarity of where we want to go, and then put that energy into that path. That's the path we need to forge. And again, I'll say this, it's not just career. It's all aspects of life. This beautiful phrase I once heard is that we're not human beings. We're human becomings. The goal of life isn't to be, it's to become. What does that mean? It means to grow. And wherever we are in our lives, wherever we are, whatever plateau we're at, we got to keep moving forward and growing and moving up. Let's say you're listening to this and you think, yeah, I'm a pretty good husband, pretty good wife. What, you can't be better? Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'm a patient dad. I'm a patient mom. What, you never lose it a little bit? How do we find out what those negative attributes are that we have? And life is about taking each one of them and working on them, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that is the legacy that we leave the world. That's the legacy we leave our children. I host this podcast, Life of Awesome, and I had George Foreman on, the heavyweight boxer. Incredible human being. And by the way, right? Cool. Yeah, and you know him from the grill, right? You can tell how old somebody is by how they know him, how they associate him.
That's true. It's like, right? Did he fight Muhammad Ali, or is he just making your cheeseburgers in college?
That's right. Right? So, this guy, first of all, just looking at his life, first of all, gold medal winner in the Olympics. Yeah. Okay. That's a reason to celebrate him. That's a reason to get somebody on a podcast. The guy won a gold medal in the Olympics.
For sure.
Put that aside. Heavyweight champion of the world. Twice. with a 20-year interval. He was heavyweight champion of the world at 20 years old. 20 years go by, does it again. He becomes the oldest to ever become heavyweight champion of the world. That's a reason to get him on a podcast. By the way, put that aside. He made $150 million his first year with the grill. That's a reason as an entrepreneur. The guy is successful. So I asked him, not a bad year. And I remember our wedding, we got one. Everyone had one on the grill in the early 2000s. Like that was on the wedding registry, right?
It was
like
100%.
Everyone had that grill. And, I remember getting him on my podcast and I asked him a question. I said, George, what is the legacy you want the world to remember about you? Imagine you get Michael Jordan on. You say, hey, Mike, what's the legacy you want the world to remember? I have a feeling he might mention basketball. If you got Steve Jobs back from the grave and said, Steve, what do you want the world to remember? I promise you he'd say something that has to do with a certain fruit. Yeah, an apple something. But George Foreman doesn't mention boxing, doesn't mention grills, doesn't mention money, doesn't mention Olympic gold, nothing. He says one thing. You want to know what I want the world to remember? You want to know what I want my children to remember about me? That I loved human beings. Cool. That I tried to make an impact in the world. That when I walked down the street and I smiled at someone, it could hopefully light up their day just a little bit more. He understood something so powerful. Our career is a representation of who we are. It doesn't define who we are. Our career gives us an opportunity to grow. Who we are at work and who we are at home, same person. Should be the same person. Why should you have integrity at work? What is integrity? Integrity is one thing. It's so simple that when I give my word to someone, you can take it to the bank. I give my word and it matters. It's stronger than oak. If you remember Jerry Maguire, when Cush's father shakes his hand, he goes, I give you my word and it's stronger than oak. And we saw what happened there.
That didn't work out for Jerry.
That didn't work out so well for Cush and Jerry. So stronger than oak is my word. So what's the stakes to not having integrity in the workplace? If you give your word to someone in the workplace and you don't stand behind it, you can get fired. You could lose a client. If you tell a client, I'll have it to you by Monday morning at 9, and you don't have it, they're not going to hire you again, which means you get fired, which means you lose money. So everybody will tell you in the workplace, yeah, you should have integrity in the workplace so you don't lose your money. Well, what about at home? I got an 11-year-old daughter. What if I tell her, you know what, this Sunday, we're going to spend an hour together, whatever you want. And then Sunday comes and I go, you know what, honey? I can't make that hour with you. Is that so bad? It's not so bad. She can't fire you. You're not going to lose money. You know what the stakes are to not have integrity with your daughter? You lose part of the relationship.
For sure.
You see, integrity at work and home, the same. Who we are at work and all aspects of us should be the same person we are at home. Translation, life, whether it's work, home, or any experience we have, is there to give us an opportunity to grow, because ultimately we're human becomings.
I agree. I love that. Human becomings is a pretty powerful term, and I think you're totally right. The ability to make a promise to ourselves and keep it, the ability to make a promise to others and keep it on a consistent basis, and just ingraining that as a habit of who we are, is really, I think, what separates the people that make tremendous impact in this world and the people that just kind of live ordinary, mundane lives and leave a lot of potential on the table. If we can consistently say, listen, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do these 5 things, and then actually bang them out and do it, then you build this incredible self-trust. And it just becomes a certain point in your life where if you write down you're going to do something, it's almost like it's already done, because you've had so many days in a row that you've kept promises to yourself. And I think that is just such a valuable habit, keeping promises to ourselves and others. And, I love how you always go back to movie quotes and things like that. I think it makes your coaching and your teaching so unique, is how you kind of drop in these movie quotes that really help drive the points home. I'm curious, what fictional character do you think we can learn the most from?
Wow. Okay. That's a great question.
Or not even the most, but just what's a fictional character that you've learned that you've learned a lot from?
Okay, I'm going to give you two. One is nonfiction and one's fiction. How
Let's
about
do
that?
it. Perfect.
Okay, let's go nonfiction for a moment. Let's go to the Bible. And for anyone listening right now, you may be religious, you may not be religious, but either way, you can't deny that the Bible is a bestseller. And by the way, you can look it up. The fourth, the fourth biggest bestseller of all time is Harry Potter.
Okay.
The third bestseller of all time is The Little Prince.
Okay.
The second bestseller of all time is actually my favorite of all. It's Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, which is an incredible story. But the number one bestseller of all time with over 5 billion sold is a little book called the Bible. And in the Bible,
That's pretty
there is a
interesting.
story.
I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty big. And there's a story. We've all heard the story of David and Goliath. David and Goliath. David was this shepherd, pure of heart, and this Philistine giant, Goliath, was coming to destroy humanity. And David, the little boy, the shepherd boy, the skinny little twig nothing, ends up standing up in front of Goliath with his slingshot with a little pebble, does the slingshot, hits Goliath in the head, slays the giant. And it's like this miraculous story, and everyone hears like, wow, isn't that incredible? Look what David did. He beat Goliath. There's something so powerful in that story. Let's rewind for a moment. Something that we can pull from that is so powerful. It's not the fact that David stood there and beat Goliath that's incredible. That's not the miracle. The miracle is that David stood and tried. Is that he stood there realizing he wasn't an idiot, realizing I'm this tall and Goliath is monstrous, looms over me, huge. And guess what? I'm going to try anyway. You see, once we have the clarity in life of what we want to accomplish, if you think it's going to be easy, don't try, because it means it's not worth it. My son once said to me, I remember last year, he's like, Dad, I want to go into track. I'm like, oh, yeah? He goes, yeah. He goes, Dad, you think it'll be easy? I said, well, it depends how good you want to be. If you want to be good at running, it'll be easy. If you want to be great, it's going to be difficult. If you wake up with clarity that you want to be the greatest track runner on the planet that ever lived, you're going to have to sweat. You're going to have to bleed. You're going to go through pain. The most incredible thing is that David stood there and goes, you know what? I may fail, but guess what? I got to try. You know, when I was in art school, I remember, finding out that Disney in their portfolios did not want any drawings of cartoon characters. They wanted drawings of humans and animals from life. That's what they wanted in their portfolio. When you guys watch a movie like The Lion King, how do you think animators at Disney know how to draw elephants? You know how? Because they go to the zoo and you sit there for 100 hours and you draw elephants from life. So I remember one day in college, my second year, me and my best friend Andy and like 15 other students get on a bus and we go to the Columbus Zoo to draw animals, because that's what Disney said you need to put in your portfolio. And this was a freezing cold, bitter day. Freezing cold. The second we all get to the zoo, all of us like crowd into this Wendy's cafe to get hot drinks because it's freezing out there.
Sure.
And I remember after a couple of minutes, the boys start flirting with the girls. The girls start flirting with the boys. It's college. That's what you do. And after about 2 minutes, Andy and I sharpen our pencils. We go out there and we find an elephant. And we start drawing this elephant in the freezing cold. And this elephant is walking back and forth. It was amazing. And just following after this elephant for 45 minutes freezing, we did drawings. Afterwards, I go into the bus with Andy and I'm showing him my drawings. He's showing me his drawings. Oh, good job, buddy. Then I said to one of the other guys, I said to the guys, hey, we never saw any of you at the elephants. Where were you? What animals were you guys drawing? The guy looks up at me and he goes, none of us ever left the Wendy's cafe. I said, what do you mean you didn't leave? He goes, well, we couldn't leave. I go, what do you mean you couldn't leave? He says, we couldn't leave. You know why? It was too cold. It was too cold? Wait a minute. I thought your dream was to work at Disney. You're wearing a Mickey Mouse sweatshirt. You see, it's easy to get the clarity of a goal. It's easy to get the dream. Oh, this is what I want to do. But when it gets difficult, are you in? When it gets a little uncomfortable, are you in? When it gets painful, are you in? Put on a documentary about anybody that inspires you. Look, I've watched The Last Dance now, the Michael Jordan documentary, the Bulls, 6 times, one for each of his rings. And just for the record, LeBron don't have no 6 rings, if anyone's listening.
All you LeBron fans out there.
That's right. And when you watch that documentary of Michael and the Bulls, one thing is crystal clear. You know what made Michael incredible? You know what made the Bulls that team? Because they pushed through pain. Michael had that one game, it's called the flu game. The guy had food poisoning. If anyone's ever had food poisoning, you can't even walk from your bed to the bathroom. That's difficult. And Michael's like, oh yeah? Well, we'll just see about that. With food poisoning, and the flu, all this, he plays one of his greatest games. And he teaches us the singular mindset. In life, we need to have the expectations that something is going to be really difficult if we want to be great at it. And if we have that mindset, something so powerful. We don't have to go through pain. We get to grow through pain.
I love it.
David and Goliath. That was the first as far as nonfiction. Let's go to fiction.
Just before we move on there
really
quick, and just to talk about, David and Goliath and how he tried, right? And that was kind of what mattered there. And so many people might have that clarity of what they might be possible, what they might be able to do with their life. They might have this thought in their minds, but they never actually take action towards it. And I'm just curious, why do you think that is? And what can people do to fight through that?
Okay, it's so simple. It's so simple. It's simple to understand. It's a simple mind shift. Here's really what it is. Everybody wakes up and wants to feel good about themselves. We all want to look in the mirror and like who we see. What do we really want? We want to love who we see. We want to feel good about ourselves. And for the most part, people only feel good about themselves when they see success. The mindset we have to have is to feel equally good about ourselves, if not more, when we learn from failure. It's the gift of failure. It's the same thing with our kids. If your kid tries, I hear this from parents all the time. I really want my kid to try. I just want them to try and make an effort. I don't care about their grades. I'm like, okay, that's absolutely true. I agree with that. But when your kid gets an A, how do you respond? You celebrate. Woohoo! We're going out for dinner tonight, kids. Johnny got an A. And when they got a C but really tried, how do you respond? Here's how I go over to them. I go, hey, did you try? Yeah, then I'm proud of you. Did you take him out for dinner? No. What's the difference? We have to be real. We have to be real that the process of failure, the process of growth, is that we can only learn through failure. And the thing that holds people back is they want to get that immediate gratification. They want to look in the mirror and go, I love who I am. And how am I going to love myself? When I see success. The ones that are great, whether they see success or failure, it doesn't matter. You know what gives them the pleasure? Not the success. What gives them the pleasure is waking up with the clarity and knowing that they're putting 110% of their efforts into growing. That's the pleasure. That's the pleasure you get at the end of every day when you put your head on the pillow, whether you killed it at work or not. Doesn't matter. Did you give it everything today? Did you strive? Did you work at it? If you've done that, that's all you can do. That's the pleasure. The pleasure is knowing that I'm putting 110% into it. And ultimately, when we have that clarity, it's energizing. That's where the energy comes from, not from the immediate successes, because that will come and go. You never want your emotions to be contingent on outside experiences. To be careful, because we get very emotional. We're up and down based on this or that. We have to have the clarity that this is the right thing to do. Do not follow your heart. That's right. Did Saul just say that? Don't follow your heart. Don't you always tell your kids, follow your heart? No, don't follow your heart. Follow your head. because your emotions will take you any which way in a moment. You can't write an email to someone when you're angry. You can't parent your child. Teach them when you're emotional. Will Smith, look what happened to him. He's sitting in the audience. 8 seconds later, he's on stage, slaps Chris Rock, and is screaming like an infant. Because what happened? He let his emotions take away with him. And a lot of us heard when Will Smith did that, and we were like, hey, hold on, Will, you shouldn't have done that. We condemned him. Easy to condemn him, but you know what? Let's look inward for a second. What, you never did anything like that? No, I never went up on the stage and slapped. So, okay, hold on. You never lost your cool for a moment? You never let your emotions get away with you? Easy to condemn him. Hard to look inward. What we need to do is not follow our heart. We need to follow our head. What is the right path for me? And once we have the clarity what the right path is, then take the emotion and the passion from the heart and direct it after the head. If we do that, nothing's in our way.
I love that, man. That's really powerful stuff, and I agree that the people that really do great things, right? That they just find pleasure in the day-to-day process, in knowing that they made a plan, they stuck to that plan, they showed up for themselves day in, day out, and really their whole goal is just to get to their deathbed and know they left it all on the playing field, whether or not they accomplish that goal or not. And with that mindset, you probably will accomplish your goal. You're kind of unstoppable if you're really just committed to the process and just knowing that you're leaving it all on the field and you're maximizing your potential. I think that is a really powerful mindset shift for
I'm happy you brought up the deathbed. There's a great quote. I'll kind of butcher it a little bit, but it's everybody knows, I'm sure, who Tim Robbins is. I'm sorry, Tony Robbins. Tim Robbins, also from Shawshank.
Yeah, we know both of those guys.
Either Robbins.
They're both great guys.
Both great Robbins. But Tony Robbins, right, the guru, biggest motivational speaker in the world. Well, his guru was a guy named Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn has so much great wisdom. People should go do a deep dive on his wisdom. But he had something so beautiful he shared. I never forgot this. He said, at the end of our lives, and you brought it up, right? You brought up our deathbed. Everyone is going to look back. And we get to choose when we look back. We get to look back and realize there were 2 pains that we get to choose in life. Now, everyone is going to experience one of these pains. You cannot avoid it, but we get to choose which one we want. We could either choose A, the pain of regret. The pain of regret. You're on your deathbed. You look back at your life and you have regret. Why didn't I accomplish this? Why didn't I work on this relationship? And a lot of people at the end of their life are going to be pointing fingers to someone. Oh, that person got in my way. That family member got in my way. My boss never understood my real potential. You want to blame people? Either way, you're going to have the pain of regret. Ultimately, you know what that pain really is? Why didn't I work at it? That's the pain, the first one. You can choose that pain, says Jim Rohn, or another pain. The pain of doing the work. Doing the work. Doing the struggle. Drawing elephants in the freezing cold. Working on your jump shot every day. Michael Jordan took 800 jump shots every day before breakfast. Was it easy? It wasn't easy. Who cares? He did it anyway. Each one of us is going to experience 1 or 2 pains. The pain of regret or the pain of doing the work. Let's hope we choose the pain of doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, that's really powerful stuff. And I just think as people and as men, you know, we are just innately built to work, right? I mean, God gave Adam a shovel before he gave him a wife. I just think that, you know, that there's a reason for that. I just think that putting good work forth every single day and living a useful life is a much more advantageous goal than seeking happiness. I'd rather seek out being useful than trying to be happy, because I think if I seek out being useful on a daily basis, the happiness will be a byproduct.
Oh, you nailed it. You know, you remind me of one of my favorite animated movies of all time. Look, I made my career as an animator producer at Disney, but there's one movie at Disney that came out right before I got hired. Still my favorite movie, is a movie I never worked on. It's here. I'll sing the song and see if you know it. Ready?
Let's do it again.
Here we go. It's the Lion King, baby. There you go.
That sounded good too. That's
And
definitely not the first time you've done that.
actually, I don't even know what the words are to that. I just make that up whenever I sing it.
I love it.
You know, my kids like, Daddy, it sounds like you said Hotel Transylvania. Hotel Transylvania. I don't even know what I'm saying. But hey, you knew what it was, right?
100%.
Look, Lion King, such a powerful movie. And in that movie, we meet our protagonist, our main character, Simba. And Simba wants to be king. He sings a song about it. I just can't wait to be king. And he thinks being a king is you can do whatever you want. Matter of fact, he tells his father, Mufasa, like, being a king is going to be amazing. You can do whatever you want. And his father's like, Simba, there's more to being a king than getting your way all the time. Simba's like, there's more? Wow, what could be better? And then, look, something happens to Dad. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the movie came out 30 years ago, so you deserve to have it.
Everyone's seen Lion King.
Everyone's seen it, right?
If you haven't, then that's on you.
Right. But look, Dad dies. I mean, it is a Disney movie. They always have to kill off a parent, right?
Right. Sure, Bambi,
right.
It happens.
Finding Nemo, Bambi, right? By the way, it's amazing how many Disney characters have no moms. You ever notice that? Little Mermaid has no mother. Belle in Beauty and the Beast has no mother. Aladdin has no mother. Bambi, look what they did to his mother. That's another story.
I never made that correlation. That sounds like a deep dive for another day.
That's part two.
That's right.
But Dad dies and Simba goes off and lives in Hakuna Matata world, right? Remember? Hakuna Matata, what a wonderful, right? Yeah. So what does Hakuna Matata mean? It means, you remember what it means?
I don't. What does Hakuna Matata?
It means some of your listeners are like yelling at the radios right now, like, "Come on, Brett, you don't know." It means no worries. It's in Swahili. It means no worries. That's what Hakuna Matata means, and that's where Simba goes off and lives. And who wants a life of no worries? All of us.
Right. Sounds nice, anyway.
Right. And one of the things I remind people all the time is, if you want a life of no worries, don't get married. If you want a life of no worries, don't have teenagers. I wouldn't do that. Right? Life's hard. So Simba goes off and lives in Hakuna Matata world, and it's beautiful. It's lush. There's a waterfall. There's flowers. I mean, it looks like everywhere we want to go on vacation. It looks like Hawaii. He sleeps in a hammock at night, hangs out in a jacuzzi. Like, what could be better? And at the end of the movie, somebody shows up. Who finds him at the end? Nala, the little girl lioness. They grew up together. And she sees him and they sing their song, "Can you feel the love tonight?" Remember? And they start rolling around. The sun is setting. And she's like, "Hey, it's good to see you, but you got to come back with me." He's like, "Come back where? What do you mean? Look where I live." She's like, "You don't understand. You don't understand. Scar has taken over everything." He's like, "But Hakuna Matata, look where I live. Why would I leave this?" Right. And she's like, no, you don't get it. Scar's taken over everything. And if you don't come back with me, everyone is going to die. And you are responsible. Then you know what he says? Hakuna Matata, I'm staying right here. And then she sings, "Why won't he be the king I know he is? The king I see inside." You know who she's speaking to? All of us. When are we going to wake up and realize the potential that we really have to live the most awesome life imaginable? Wherever we are in our lives, wherever we are, take pleasure where we are, but strive to grow past it. We can be kings and queens. Each one of us can change the world. Simba doesn't see it. And you know what she does? She leaves him there. He's left alone. Rafiki, the baboon, comes, hits him on the head. He sees his father, Mufasa, in the clouds, and he hears his father's words, "Remember who you are." Remember? And Simba goes back, defeats Scar, and Lion King becomes the biggest animated movie of all time. BF, before Frozen.
Right.
And you know why it becomes the biggest animated movie in history? Not because we just love movies about lions. No. It's because that movie gives us a taste of what true greatness really is. You know what it is? Waking up with a singular mindset to take responsibility for the world. For the world. And where do we take responsibility for the world? Responsibility is wherever I have the ability to respond. A responsibility is wherever I have an ability to respond. That means every single one of us who's listening, the fact about it is that every single one of us has a unique purpose. How do I know? Because we're all unique. No two people are the same, which means at the end of the day, no two people have the same purpose. Translation, we're not in competition with anyone. Nobody. Each one of us has a unique purpose. And where will we have the ability to respond? In different ways in life. If you've gone through pain in life, I remember when my wife went through a miscarriage, a couple of them, and then there was someone else in our community that went through a miscarriage. My wife reached out to this girl and said, hey, I went through it too, because I've been through your pain. Each one of us sees the world through a different way. And we have to look through life and see, where do I have the ability to respond? You know, I mentioned George Foreman before. I got to tell you one more amazing thing about this guy.
Please,
that changed
with all the George Foreman facts. We've always got time for George.
Brett, this changed my life, because I get George Foreman on and I'm like, George, like I list his accolades, you know, heavyweight boxer, all these things. And I go through it all. At the end of the episode, I go to the video of the night he becomes heavyweight champion of the world. He's 20 years old. He beats Smokin' Joe Frazier, which was his idol growing up. And George, in one night, goes from poverty-stricken thug. He used to rob people. He ate like 1 or 2 meals a day. He had a very hard upbringing, really struggled. And in one moment, he beats the heavyweight champion of the world, becomes heavyweight champion of the world, and now he becomes a millionaire. Think of the emotions happening in that moment. And it's like the end of a Rocky movie, right? We're talking movies. Everyone crowds the ring. They're surrounding him. And this old sportscaster comes up with a microphone and puts it in George's face and says, George, you just became heavyweight champion of the world. What's going to be next for you? And without a blink of an eye, George responds, I want to tell everyone out there, every kid out there, that you can accomplish anything with hard work. Now listen carefully. This isn't George 2 weeks later sitting on Jimmy Fallon or Johnny Carson at the time's couch and reflecting on this big night and going, hey, you know what? You should all work for your dreams. No, this is when all the emotion is going. The first thing he said is the first thing he was thinking. It's the first thing he was feeling was, how do I take this accomplishment and use it to impact another human being? And the sportscaster hears that response and doesn't like it and says, no, George, no, I don't mean that. I mean in the ring. Like, what's next for you in the ring? And George says, the world is my ring. And George says, I'm going to say that again without the dog. Hold on. And George says, shush. Hold on one sec. You're going to edit that, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, listen, the dog likes the story. We're all firing up right now.
Right. Next. Shh. And George says, hold on. Shush. And shush. Come back. Sit. Good boy. Okay.
Good boy.
Come here.
Good boy. Who's the good boy?
Who's the good boy? And George says, the world is my ring. And I'm going to share that message every day of my life. He understands that's what life is about. And that's what we have to do. And you said it, Brett, beautifully. You use the word meaning. You know, if you ask 90% of the world, what do you want in life? Everyone will tell you, I want to be happy. But happiness is usually contingent on outside experiences. If I meet my soulmate, I'll be happy. If I get 2 more zeros on my bank statement, I'll be happy. Right? But that's not it. There's something so much sweeter than happiness, and that is a life of meaning. And a life of meaning comes from one thing. How do I wake up with a singular mindset to take responsibility for the world? Once you have that mindset and that's what you work towards, there's no greater pleasure.
That's powerful stuff. And I think we all kind of have found ourselves leaning into that Hakuna Matata mindset at different times in our life. Maybe we're going out with the boys a little bit too much. Maybe we're playing a little bit too much golf and we're not spending time on the work that's really meaningful to us. And I think that that can work for a little bit and you can have some fun living that lifestyle. But in your heart, there's a voice in the back of your mind that knows you should be sitting down at the desk, putting the work in towards your dream to live a meaningful and useful life. And I think that is how we're really going to just live our best lives, our most fulfilled lives, and happiness will be a byproduct of that. Saul, thank you for absolutely bringing so much fire today, so
Boom.
much energy, and just
It's the
really.
circle of life, and it moves us all. Right? And with a good Disney song.
Oh, please! I love it, dude. Where can everyone keep? Where can everyone keep up with all you've got going on these days?
Well, first of all, thank you again so much for having me, Brett. You're incredible, and I really also thank especially your audience for tuning in, listening. You know, a message specifically for your audience is if you ever listen to a podcast episode, a TED talk, or a book, and you have inspiration, you got to be careful because inspiration comes and goes. Inspiration will slip through our fingertips. One moment you'll hear something, you'll be inspired. The next day, what did they say? What did she say? It's one thing, shush. It's one thing to be inspired. It's another. It's one thing to be inspired. It's another to live inspired. The goal has to be, how do I take things that I've heard or a new mindset shift and implement them into action? Because if we don't do that, it will never be real. So I really appreciate everyone for being here. And I urge you to write down notes and turn these ideas into action steps. And then you'll see that growth that you want at the end of every day. If you want to follow me more, I'm on Instagram, Saul, Saul .Blinkoff. You can also find everything that I'm doing on my website, saulblinkoff.com. You will see the podcast there, which is Life of Awesome, and everything else that I'm doing. You can sign up for newsletters and all kinds of interesting things that I share. And again, I thank everyone for tuning in. And, you know, I urge people, don't settle for a life of good when you could have great. And don't settle for a life of great when you can have a life of awesome.
There it is, guys. Thank you, Saul, for being with us. Truer words have never been spoken. Take the information you learned today. What's the one nugget that really speaks most to you? Put it on your to-do list and take action on it right now, guys. Hey, thank you very much, Mr. Saul Blinkoff. This has been Persistence Playbook, and we will catch you next week.